Krishnan Subramaniam has put together. So please give a big round of applause first to Krishnan. This idea came from him about almost 6 months ago to celebrate this great maestro, Dr. Ramani, whose legacy that we'll never ever forget. We can say a lot of things about Dr. Ramani, but the only way we can show is how we can take the torch forward with all the things that he has done for us. And today, what we have seen, as well as yesterday, is how Dr. Ramani would have liked to see the flute, what he has brought into this whole legacy of contributions towards flute move forward. So we thought we can do this one panel discussion where we actually discuss about Ramani sir's contribution in many different ways. Ramani sir as a musician, and that is why we have Shri Madurai Sundar and Shri Vinod Seetharaman, who are as musicians are going to actually talk about the contributions of Ramani sir. And then Ramani sir as a teacher. Ramani sir is a teacher where we have Gopi, Shankar and Ranjani who are going to talk about their experiences as Ramani sir as a teacher. And then Ramani sir as an innovator. When I say innovator, yes, as much as he taught flute, as he played flute and he showed the innovation, but this is where we want to show what were his specific contributions as an innovator. We also want to see how Ramani sir had a huge influence on so many different people's lives. And this is where we have again all of you, as well as a torchbearer who's sitting at the behind, will share his experience as how Ramani sir's legacy is going to be taken forward. So with that, I have one quote which I want to share with all of you, which says it all. And this is actually none other than by Albert Einstein, when he referred to Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "Generations to come, it may will scarcely believe that such a man as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon this earth." So to me, Ramani sir is in that category of people whom we will always remember. And with this, I actually want to turn it over to Madurai Sundar, who will share with us what Ramani sir's greatness as a musician and how he has contributed to us, has given our contributions to all of us. Please. In English? Is it okay in English? So this, yeah, okay, in English.
Good morning. Amongst the galaxy of his students and grand disciples, I'm going to get lost. But I'll definitely add my 2 cents worth. When I was under the tutelage of Madurai, Sri T.N. Seshgopalan sir, from early 1970s, for about 20 years from then, T.N. sir used to take us to Ramani sir's kacheri. For the youngsters, I have to kind of set the setting, I think set the background. Those were not the time of YouTubes, no Dropbox. So if you had to listen to concerts, you really have to go in person. And the only other source used to be AIR. And AIR didn't have a whole lot of exposure to Carnatic music. And even if there were concerts, the concerts were only an hour or so. So, given that setting, I had the opportunity of not only listening to Ramani Mama's concerts, but I also had the opportunity to listen to the concerts in the company of my great guru. So in fact, as Ramani sir used to play, my guru used to kind of explain to his students what the greatness was. Because at that time, all we could probably decipher was the raga and the kriti, and it's basically the real basics, real 101 of Carnatic music. So we kind of grew up looking up to musicians like that. If you trace the history of Carnatic music, there were hundreds, maybe thousands of very popular, very successful Carnatic musicians over the period of time. But there are only a few, very handful few, who we would call as Margadarshis. They are pace setters, path setters. They are the true legends. Although the word legend is very loosely used these days. If you really look at that word has a lot of import to it. So if you want to really use it, you should be really careful. So when you say somebody is a legend, it's not only that they were very successful professionally, but they left behind a legacy, and they have a large galaxy of students who propagate the ideology of the music that they stood for. And Mama was not only an innovator, but he was also very strict to some of the padantarams and some of the traditions that he brought from his guru. He could play a raga for 3 minutes and make it sound like he played for 10 minutes. That's the kind of quintessence of Carnatic music that he carried. And to that, he added layam. And his layam used to be not very overt, but very, very subtle, but really, really very difficult. For instance, once he played a pallavi, I think I've quoted this on a different occasion, where he had composed all the three nadais in the first half itself. I don't remember the words, but I'll at least tell you what the R's of the pallavi is. Takka, dimi, dam, takkita, dam, takka, dam, tadam, tadam, tadam. Takka, dimi, dam. So Chatushram, and then Tishram and Kandam. Takka, dimi, dam, takkita, dam, takka, dam, tadam, tadam, tadam. And then he had Uttaranga. Fast forward from 1970s to last year at Cleveland Aravana. I happened to meet him and do namaskarams right after Pancharatna. Then he said, "Inge vada. Mundana ido pallavi paadiyame Gopu paadinathu." Ama mama. Adu ava Gurunadhar pannado? Ama mama avaroda inga Gurunadharoda rangethathukku avaru ennoda paramaguru panninathu. Adu enga paadi kaami appadina. So it was a pallavi in Shanmugapriya in Mishra Tripura Thalam. So I sang it to him. And then he listened to it for 3-4 times, and then I could see that his gears started grinding. He was on those lines. Then after that, I was thinking, what a great man he was, and what a great man he still is. Because even at this stage in his career, and he had nothing else to prove, and we know he was probably on his last legs, in terms of health. But he was listening to that pallavi like he was just a student trying to learn something new. That's the kind of human being he was. So humble, and you felt be humbled in his presence. I thank you to you.
Thank you so much, Sundar. What an inspiration. I think that's every, as I say, every moment at his breath, you could feel that there was a teaching in everything that he did in that regard. On that note, when you were mentioning about his music skill and how he was portraying it, I was wondering, Shankar, can you share with us really what do you think really influenced that aspect in him, on how he was able to bring forth, everything that he did? Can you explain? Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So, one thing about music that Sri Sundar spoke about is the fact that even towards the very end, he was still learning something. So, I'll tell you something that happened about 10 years ago. Ramani sir, by that time, was really towards the tail end of his performing career, in the sense that the music he was playing was different from what he was playing in the 70s and things like that. He had met presidents and prime ministers. He had hit very, very high highs in his career. And at some point he was talking to my father, and he mentioned that every single day he's learning a new song. He's going through past notations, he's talking to other Vidhwans. He said, once I'm in my 70s, I realize that my mind is not as sharp as it used to be. And so in order to keep myself as sharp as I was, I'm going to continue to be that level of student. So every single day, he would learn a new song over a period of 10 years. Some things he would say, I've probably learned this in the past, but there's a Padandram that I'm really interested in, and I want to learn this Padandram. And so he revisited a lot of work that he had. So being that eternal student was very important to him. But more broadly, talking to what Sunitha was asking about influences in Ramani Sar's life. Very early on as a flute player, obviously he was influenced by his guru, Mali, T.R. Mahalingam. T.R. Mahalingam was an acknowledged genius in his own lifetime. He was also a relative of Ramani Sar. I believe he was his mama, though Ramani Sar referred to him as Mali Anna. And Ramani Sar was not necessarily Mali's star student in his early days. It was something that came through a tremendous application. Ramani Sar was probably rivaled by one or two other artists in the history of musicians in terms of the amount of practice he has put in. Mali also was a very difficult taskmaster. Ramani Sar has told me stories where he would be invited to sit with his guru on stage, and on stage, Mali plays at Anjikate, at G. And he would casually turn around and give Ramani Sar a flute in some random shruti and say, "Idula vasipa." And so Ramani Sar eventually put in the practice where you could give him any flute and he could play about 20 to 30 ragas in any other shruti on that flute. It's a staggering level of musical accomplishment that probably served him in really good stead as he developed other influences in his life. His big influences, other than Mali was not well known for Padandara Shuddham or a tremendous Padandara himself. He was a purely Manodharma musician, and that's something that Ramani Sar definitely got from Mali. But his Padandara influences primarily came from two people. One is the Chemmangudi Mani. That school is something that Ramani Sar has learned from early in his career and revisited later in his career as well. Another big influence and reasonably good friend as well was Ramnath Krishnan. Ramnath Krishnan's brother Ramnath Raghavan helped start the Cleveland Tyagaraja Festival. And Ramani Sar was a big part of that as well. He was a member of the Aradhana committee that runs the festival. But Ramnath Krishnan was a tremendous influence on Ramani Sar's style, which again derived from the Brinda and Mukta school. That entire Tiruvarur family's influence of Padandram on Ramani Sar's playing was tremendous, and that influenced his playing style. While Mali was a great innovator, his playing was largely unrefined compared to the innovations that Ramani Sar brought to the table. In a sense, Mali could be the Margadarshi. He showed the path, said this is the way to go for this instrument. But the person who paved the road and put down markers and allowed trucks to go by at 90 miles an hour was Dr. N. Ramani. However, the influence of Brinda and Mukta really forced him into a very Gayaki style. He would take breaths at specific points to point out the lyrical intensity of the song. His later association with Lalguri Jayaraman in the 70s is really when Lalguri Jayaraman gave him the freedom to think outside the limits of lyrics. He gave him the freedom to say that, hey, you're playing an instrument. Don't be bound by what the voice can do. Feel free to express yourself differently through your instrument as a legitimate device in Carnatic music. And so you'll see through the 70s and 80s, You will see blistering speeds, extraordinary technical abilities and techniques that he showcases through that period. And towards the end of the 80s is when you'll hear him hitting that Saukyam back into his performances. So following Ramani sir's career arc is probably a good way to take a look at what his influences are and where to see how his thought process changed over the course of his career.
Thank you, Shankar. That was very profound to know the influences and to be able to see how that shaped his music career. But going on the same level of influences, Sundar.
I have something to add here. For those of you who don't know, Ramnath Krishnan learned from Ramanathapuram Shankar Shivam, who happened to be my Parama Guru. So maybe, do you think that influenced some of his Laya approaches?
Absolutely. The other...
I want to take it.
There's one of the more popular Bharathanatyam artists today, K.V. Gopalakrishnan. Vidhwan K.V. Gopalakrishnan remembers Ramani sir very fondly by saying that he is one of the people who made mathematics sound very good. And I think a lot of that does come from Shankar Shivam, and also the tremendous respect he had for your Guru Madurai Sri T. N. Seshagopalan is one of the people that Ramani sir has always said served not just as, he served in many capacities in Ramani sir's life. One is to see the young artist kind of come out of nowhere with these blazing genius ideas. Then later as a contemporary in the field, and later on as sources of inspiration, saying that I attended a Seshagopalan Kache. I've heard this, I've heard that, etc., etc. But there was this one moment in this Kalyani. It was so beautiful, it was Kalyani, and yet I have never heard it before. And so the schools, Seshagopalan sir's Laya Vidvat is beyond the question here. And I'm sure that Ramani sir at different points has drawn inspiration for him. His Laya influence was also very strong because his neighbor was Tanjavur Upendra. They spent a lot of time together. When Ramani sir's son Tyagarajan was growing up, he has very fond memories of a lot of time spent with Tanjavur Upendra as well, just being neighbors on 2nd Link Street in Mylapore.
Yeah, Upendra was my story in his own way.
But speaking of live Vidhwan, I wanted to turn it over to Vinod and ask what is it that you'd like to share about Ramani sir and playing for Ramani sir?
I would like to preface by saying when I saw the topic of discussing Ramani sir's legacy, I was looking forward to it, not from the standpoint of being here, but from in the audience, listening to all the experience that people on stage have to share. But when you approached me, it was a great honor to talk about my experiences with Ramani sir. Thank you for the opportunity. Growing up in Bangalore, I've heard many concerts of Ramani sir when he used to come to Ramaseva Mandali or Seshagripuram for Ramanavami concerts or for Gokulashtami. And my only experience or contact was being in the audience listening to this great maestro accompanied by M.S. Gopalakrishnan sir, Umyapuram Shivaraman sir, Guru Ayurveda sir, etc. So always in awe of him. And like Sundar sir said earlier, I didn't know much technically at that time. So I would just be awed by the sound of the flute. Especially I liked, after the Taniyavattanam, he will take the big bansuri and then he will play a Sindhu Bhairavi or he'll play one bhajan in some North Indian ragam or something. That was the biggest attraction for me growing up. And then coming to Cleveland, after I started attending Cleveland Aradhana and playing there, got more opportunities to talk to sir and even interact with him, which the Cleveland Aradhana provided. So in 2002, when I was given, when Sundaram sir said, can I accompany Ramani sir, it was in South Bend, Indiana. I was going to play 2 kacheris. He asked, could I play for him? I said yes, but I was extremely nervous. I was very, 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 very nervous. Because here is this maestro that I have revered all my life, and suddenly I'm supposed to be playing for him, right? So my first kacheri, my parents were here in the US, so they were also thrilled, so they came with me. We went to Meena's and Ganesh's house for, I think, lunch or brunch, and then the kacheri was in the evening. I was so nervous, I think Ramani sir sensed it. I'm not talking about me, I'm just talking about the experience, and you will relate it to Ramani sir as a person or a performer, right? So, sir sensed it, and in the green room before the kacheri, he was just talking to me casually. Nothing related to music, nothing related to what he was playing, nothing. He just said, "Eppo vande nee?" "Ippo na vande sir." "Oh, how long is it a drive from Detroit?" I said, "2 hours, sir." "Oh, innike kalam." So just casual conversation. Suddenly those things started to put me at ease, right? Here is this great maestro who's trying to relate to me, right? Getting onto the stage, in the mic testing, it's very rare that great artists will go out of their way to find out if your sound is okay for you. Ramani sir did that. I think he did it on purpose to make me feel at ease. That's my interpretation of it. So then he said, "Kekarda, mridangala kekarda, in sound eppadi irukku?" All those kind of things which I didn't deserve. And here is a Sangeeta Kalanidhi who's giving me that space and that time, right? And then in the kacheri, after the first song, he asked, "Is everything okay?" and all this stuff. It made me, I think, play better, which also meant that I got to play for him a few other times. So I just want to highlight the person, a performer who supported a young co-artist who's extremely nervous and who's in complete thing of playing for him. Talking about Lion, that was your main question, right? Ramani sir will make look things very easy. So when you're in the audience, it's so nice and so normal, like Sundar sir said earlier. My own personal experience is he had a Brahma Lion, which I feel that's true. You could set a metronome to his Lion. That was that perfect. And he would never put talam like hard. He'll just do this. So you will almost feel that he's casual, but it was so perfect. You could play whatever you want, and that Lion would still fall right in that place. Another experience I found is when he played a Vatapi Ganapatim or something like that. I'm sure as students you would relate to this too. Is between the Sangatis, he'll do a faran or a roll or one flood of swarams, and it would all come, it would be musical and fall in place. And it was all, I believe it was all original, meaning spontaneous. It was not rehearsed, I'm pretty sure about that. And once I made the mistake of trying to play on the mridangam his faran, and I failed miserably. So I'm trying to say the speed at which he would play those flying notes, it was impossible with all my fingers and two sides of a mridangam to play to that extent. So just one more experience I want to share. After the first kacheri I played for him, I felt, sitting 2 feet from him on the stage, I felt certain sense, I don't know how to describe this. It was like a musical energy on the stage. So I told this to my dad. I said, "I don't know what it is. There was something on stage, especially on certain places in the concert, that I felt there was like this vibration." So my dad mentioned this. He's a Siddha Purusha. That's exactly what he said. So the interpretation I took from that is, this person is not only a musician, he's done so much siddhi in the art that even a other person on stage or close to them, or maybe even the audience, can sense that vibration. So no question on the Liam sense, and I was really, really fortunate to even have sat next to him. So it's nothing about me, it's Sir's, the personality that he allowed a young artist to accompany him.
Thank you, Vinod. Thank you for sharing all your personal experiences. I think that's who Ramani sir was. And somebody had something to say? On that note, I want to turn it over to Ranjani. Ranjani started learning flute from him when she was only 14 years old. And at that, even before that, for her, she had only heard Ramani sir's flute, and she said, at some point, I have to start learning from him. So I want to turn to Ranjani to share your experience, what it was as you were learning from him, and as she also shared one very profound thing, which is, she said there was a point where both he and I were learning together, you know? So I want you to share that with us.
Thank you, Sunitha, and thank you, everybody, for this wonderful, tribute to my Guru, our beloved Guru. I'll be more than happy to share the little instances that he has had and impacted my life greatly. I was a girl of 7 when I left home to go to residential school, and at that point of time I was learning dance from N.C. Vasantakokilam's brother, N.C. Vasantharaman. And since I was really coming along well in the dance form, and I was going to residential school, my parents thought it was a great idea to take the dance teacher, and he became the school's dance teacher as well as teaching me dance. And that's when we had, back in those days, we had this, a radiogram where they had the radio and an LP player on top. And there was this wonderful LP record of Ramani sir, which had, just spectacular pieces. The Todi and the Kambodi and everything was just mesmerizing. And I was a girl of 7, and I would turn this LP on every single day. Not a day went by without doing that, because one thing, it brought me closer home because I was away from my parents, and I have been used to listening to a lot of Carnatic music. Both my parents were heavily into music, and so Ramani sir's flute it just completely took me over, and I was just waiting for the day when I could tell my parents that I wanted to learn flute, because I was just so mesmerized with it. And I was in the boarding school, and I went on to my 9th grade, and that's when I said, okay, can I please start? And then they said, first you learn vocal, and they signed me up with none other than one of the greatest teachers, Madurai Rajagopal. And I learned for 1 year vocal with him, and then I had the fortune of being able to be introduced to Ramani Mama's, to a common friend, and I started flute with him. And fast forward, that was the best thing that happened to me in my life. And I was a little girl of 14, not too old, but he was so patient with me, so kind, and he would not let me learn from anybody else. He was sitting one-on-one with me, and he was taking classes for many. He taught me so many songs and a lot of nuances, and me, like being who I am, I took so much liberty with him just because he was so kind and compassionate. And when he played some song, and he was so encouraging. He'd look at the first line, and when I was struggling with that first line, he would say, "Modal vari vaasichu della thana vandurum." First, you just play the first line, automatically everything will just come. So it was magical, and the minute I believed that was what will happen, and I left other things aside, it did happen. And soon enough, I was able to gradually learn more complex kritis. And when I got to a point where he would allow me to use my judgment to pick any sangati that he played, I would try and mimic him as much as I could, always failing, perennially failing. And he would tell me, "Don't worry, you will get it." And then he would sit with me and make sure that I got all those sangatis. And then when it came to a point where he and I would play together, he would have extra, like multiple sangatis that he brought right there. And I would just be, "You're not teaching me everything." He said, "You will learn, you will learn. You will learn." So that's the kind of evolution, that process of, being mature enough to understand what your capacity is and grow with it and, suck in all that thing from him and be able to, transcend those boundaries. And that's for you, that's the freedom he has given us. And that I think is the greatest philosophy of Ramani sir, that he will let you explore where and what you want to take from that art form. And there is no restriction, there is your liberty to choose anything that you want. But of course, when he plays, what else do you want? So that was his is the highest benchmark that anybody can have in this art form, at least, and with flute as your instrument. And as far, your question was about the learning part. So this, because when I was learning from Madurai Rajagopala Iyer, my vocal guru and Ramani sir, they became very close. They already knew each other and they already had established interaction. But both of them were very encouraging to me and they were not in any way impacted by the thing that I was learning a different Padandram, and there were two different. One of them was, as I think Sundarji will understand, Marthukudi Rajagopala Iyer is a classical, very, 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 he was already 75 when I started tutelage with him, a grand old man. And Ramani sir had a great respect for him. And he would make me sing all the songs that I learned from him. And he would learn those songs together. And then from MLV Amma's Padandram, so that I have lots of recordings that he would directly get from MLV Amma. And both of us used to learn some of the songs together. And I was at first, sir, Ninga Kattana Solli Kudungalen. And then both of us used to sit together, and I have learned multiple kritis, and top few that come to my mind are Madurai Ramani Narasimhan. When I heard it yesterday, it brought me tears because I learned that song with sir. And then another song that both of us sang, learned together more recently was the Behat one, Murugan and Madupayar, all MLV's songs. And then, and MLV Amma has come multiple times, visited us when I had the honor of playing for all of them. And sir would, when, all of us know that. When anybody walks in, he has to have his students play for them and show them their, skills. And he was very, very, he would have a condescending smile and say, Vasi appeal too. So he was one of a kind. And I miss him a lot, and every kriti that was played in his name was, it took me back to those years when personally he was there to teach all those songs.
Thank you, Ranjani. Thank you for sharing those experiences. And as you mentioned about, how he took the time to learn and how he learned from just about everyone. I remember one experience about 15 years ago when he came and stayed with us. And he said, do you have Madurai Sundar's tapes with you? I said, yes, I do. And he said, can you please play that for me right now? Because I want to hear him sing and I want to learn something. So that is how he was. Whether it was, it didn't matter from where he learned, but he wanted to learn. And he was continuously an inspiration for us on how you can continuously learn and learn from all sources. And on this note, I want to turn it over to Gopi. And Gopi, I want to ask you, what are your experiences when you were learning from him? And also if you can touch upon what you saw as the innovations he introduced on the flute.
Thanks, Sunitha. Let me actually start with Ramani sir as an innovator. His association with Lal Guru Jayaraman and with Sri Venkataraman in the VVV trio series, that's when he grew tremendously as a musician. Prior to that, of course, as a junior artist, he was laying the foundation for everything that he built after that. So Shankar already mentioned, how much he learned from his guru Mali, from Ramnath Krishnan, from Vrinda, and all of those great musicians. But apart from that, to build that grip in Layam, he also trained tremendously with J. Venkataraman. he used to tell stories about how they would walk together to the river to take their morning bath, and along the way, he would be practicing his alankarams. Right? And this is a musician who at the time, they were practically contemporaries, but the practice that he was told to do by J.V. sir was alankarams. So as they walked, he would have to practice his alankarams in different nades, different yadithas, just to make sure that at any point in any talam, whatever the mathematical combination, not only should you be able to do it, you should be able to do it easily, and you should be able to do it musically. Right? So, this is, if you think about a wide range of influences and a wide range of skills that he developed, those were the foundation that he used to build on everything that came after. So, considering that foundation, the instrument, Shankar talked about how he could pick up any flute played at any instrument. When you think about Grandhee as a difficult concept for the voice, which is directly connected to your body, now you have to express that through an instrument, and you have muscle memory with your fingers to deal with, and then you have to switch with these. You have to switch how your mind thinks, and then push that out to your fingers. These are things that he mentioned it very casually, but you don't realize the tremendous effort that goes into it. So playing with these other instrumentalists, he lowered the shruti from 5 or 5.5 that he used to play with his guru to 2.5. I can tell you his guru was not happy about it and made several remarks about it in public even. And despite that, he saw the value. Not only that it's a more pleasing sound to the ears, but also it's more comfortable for his accompanist. Sounds a lot better at 2.5 than at 5.5. And also, as you move through the notes on a longer flute, the notes slide a little bit more easily. They don't sound as sharp. So it brings a little, nalinam is the word that I would use, right? So if you think about the Gayaki style, it is a lot easier to express that on the type of flute that he chose, right? And so the choice, yes, it earned the displeasure of his own guru, but there is enough of a thought process behind it that he brings to the table that he sees this is an innovation, it is a break from tradition that is worth doing because it advances the music, it advances the instrument, right? Similarly, he looked far and wide for more influences outside his own school. He used to play and collaborate a lot with Hariprasad Chaurasia. In fact, there was one concert that, Ranjani spoke about listening to a recording every day as a young child. One recording that I used to listen to as a kid every night before going to sleep was by Prabha Atre. And there was this Madhuvanti that I heard that was absolutely brilliant, and I was excited after listening to it after a gap of about 25 years. And so I took it to him and said, please listen to this. And he was like, this is an excellent example of this. And he would listen to all these playograms, and he went off on a nice 20-minute explanation of everything that he heard. Right? And with Chaurasya also, again, that's where he picked up a lot of techniques to play the bansuri, to play the longer bass flute. And these are things that were not heard in Carnatic music before. When he played Veera Bhajans, it wasn't as if it was a Carnatic musician adapting it to the concert. You would hear Veera and all of her bhakti without the lyrics. Somehow he was able to bring that out through an instrument. So the choice of the instrument, the choice of songs, everything, there was a careful thought process behind it, leading towards developing the music, presenting something to an audience that hasn't really been done before. Most of the people think about, very traditional music, and for sure he was a traditionalist, but within the bounds of tradition, he was able to bring a lot more to the forefront that had never been done before. And the key aspect, I know everybody has spoken about this, but it's really worth mentioning again, because he was truly a lifelong student. And not only that, he was willing to learn from anywhere. And I can give you 2 quick examples. There were a few songs that he wanted to learn, and again, he has the highest respect for the Chemangudi Bani. And so he asked if he could learn the song from Srimati Seetharaman, who was a student of Chemangudi Mama, and he said, Sita kitta kattukanungiradilla, avaloda student yaravadu irundhalum paravailla. So even if it wasn't, directly from a Vidushi like her, one of her students, and her students were mainly quite young. We're talking teenagers, middle school and high school children. And he was perfectly happy saying, you know what, I respect the school, I respect her as a teacher, that she will faithfully pass that down. And so what I care about is the music. Who the music comes through is not important. So even if it's a school child, I'm happy to learn from that person because the music is valuable. The other example I will give you is he used to take me along whenever he would go to listen to concerts. And it didn't matter if it was a senior musician or a junior musician. I remember going to listen to, even people who have come up in a big way now, like Seetharaman or Abhishek Raghuram. I listened to both of them as, 10-year-old children performing because Ramani sir would take me to their concerts and say, hey, bhaiya nanna paadran kelvi badakke va pola. But one specific incident happened in Cleveland. It was in the middle of the afternoon. It was a 1 o'clock concert or something by a small child. And he happened to be in the concert listening. And something the child sang sparked something. And as Sundar sir said before, you could kind of see the gears turning. And it sparked an idea. And immediately, a flood of ideas come to him. So he came rushing back after the concert was over. And apart from being a student, the teacher, he has to share this, right? So he looked around and found the first musician that he could find, who happened to be K.V. Gopalakrishnan, dragged him by the hand, as he always does, holds his hand, pulls him off to a corner, and then he says, hey, and so he just sang this small thing, and he says, so based on that, here are some ideas. And he started, right? And these are all, because he's speaking to a Laya Vidhwan, all of these Laya variations on what this child sang. And if you ask KVG, he will tell you, we're standing next to a garbage can in the middle of the dining hall, and for the next 3 hours, he came up with idea after idea, based on a spark that he got from a small child singing in the middle of the afternoon. So, as much as I say he's a student, he's willing to learn from anybody. He's willing to look for ideas anywhere. Right? And that really informed him, not only as a musician, but also as a teacher. Because again, that eagerness to share it immediately. And I say teacher, but realistically I would also call him a universal teacher, because it was not that he was only considered a teacher by his direct disciples. Right? And most of us have learned directly from him or indirectly from him. And there are several cases. As a teacher, Ranjani mentioned how he was a very caring teacher. My experiences with beginners, he was very patient. He had very detailed notes and notations that you would learn from. So as you go, you're focusing only on your technique. You quickly scribble down whatever he has written down, and then you can practice. And then as you advance as a student, his notes and notations get worse and worse. Right? You have to put in more effort to learn. Right? The onus is more on the student to pull the music out of him. Right? And so there will be less notes to say this is how you should play this gamakam. It's just plain notes, and then he expects that you will either ask him and pull the information out of him, or your own judgment, your own musical development, that okay, for this ragam, this is the gamakam that's allowed. Right? And then once you get to the advanced levels, then his notations are practically useless. I mean, literally he has a few spare notes here and there, which are just hints to say, this is a difficult spot. So here I'll write down the notes. The rest of it, you'll learn as you sing it, you'll learn as you listen to it, you'll learn as you play it. I was a very particular student, so I would, sit down and ask him questions and notate it correctly. And the time I would spend, correcting it, fixing it in my head before I'd pick up the phone. And he was willing to spend that time with me. Right? That was as much of a learning as, sitting and reading something that was already done. It's just that it moves the effort onto the student. Right? And one incident to give you an idea was that the only time I've ever asked him to teach me a particular song was Manasa Guru Buddha in Ananda Bhairavi. And I asked him, sir, can you please teach me the song? And he felt so sad because he said, I don't have that notation anymore. Because there was a flood in my house a long time ago and it got washed away. But he felt so bad that a student has asked him something and he couldn't give that. And so he said, I played that with KV and Mama in a concert at your house, so I have that recording. I'll write the notation and send it to you. And I was leaving the country the next day. So in a hurry, he wrote down just the Pallavi, and he sent one of the students and said, here, go give this. And then the moment his student delivered to me, the phone rang and he was on the phone. And I'll relate his exact words because it's shocking to hear from not just an eminent musician, but from a guru. He said, அவசரம் இது எழுதியிருக்கேன்ப்பா, நீ கிளம்புறதுக்குள்ள கொடுக்கணும்னு அவசரமா நான் அனுப்பிச்சேன், ஆனால் பல்லவி மட்டும்தான் எழுதியிருக்கேன். ஏன்னா நீ நொட்டேஷனில் கரெக்டாக எழுதுவேன்னு எனக்கு தெரியும், அதுக்காக பயந்து நான் மிச்சத்தை ஒன்று எழுதலை, அதை திருத்தி எழுதி நான் அனுப்புகிறேன். சிஷ்யனுக்கு பயந்த குரு இவர் ஒருத்தர் தான். I mean, it's not that he's truly fearful, but he recognizes that, this is the preference for this student. I know how he works on this. I will meet him where he is. Right? It was truly touching. And he immediately, he finished the rest of the notation, and then there was a musical group, Srimushlam Rajara was on tour. He sent it with him, and Rajara Mama mailed it to me when I was in college at the time. And he said, so that is how much he cared about his students and their learning, that he would go out on a limb to make sure that he would meet them where they were. I said a universal teacher, and at Cleveland, he was a huge inspiration. I mean, Sunitha and Ashok are both here. They are the main drivers behind our competition, but the inspiring force behind that was definitely Ramani sir. You would see him on stage at the prize distribution ceremony. He would always make certain that he was the one handing out the prizes. That's the only time you will see him wearing pants. Otherwise, he was always in a veshti. But he was very particular, and we started out as a very small competition, but he was always pushing me, saying, we need to push the kids. They can do it, right? And make this more advanced. So he was the one who pushed us to introduce more categories, more advanced things. He said, yes, these kids are growing up in America. They don't have access to the best teachers, but unless you push them, they won't rise. And so we introduced more categories of Manodharmam and eventually leading into the concert competition. He was the main driver behind that. And he pushed us all. And even the children that participated, he would sit as a judge, he would call them after the fact, and he would give them hints. He actually would recall several students that were so upset that they didn't win, or if they messed up on stage and they made a mistake. He would call them off when there were other concerts going on or when there was a break between concerts. He would have them sing in the lobby and listen to them and say, okay, see, this is what you did, here's how you can change this, or talk to your guru and see what she or he thinks about this particular thing that you sang. And so regardless of whether they were his direct disciples or not, he always had that sense that he would share what he knew, he would encourage other students. He was instrumental in building music in North America, regardless of whether they were learning from him or not. And I think that's something that really inspired a lot of students, whether they know it or not, that he was the driving force behind their development.
Thank you, Gopi. Thank you for sharing that behind the scenes, how much Ramani sir has contributed to the growth of the children here. On this note, I want to turn it over to somebody who's sitting very shy and at the back and who's sharing the stage here. But I want to give it to him because I think Ramani sir has had a tremendous influence on Shashank's life. And so Shashank, I would like you to discuss and give us your perspective on how Ramani sir shaped your life.
I'd like to start by saying I think my dad had kind of predetermined that I'm just joking, but he named me Shashank, and I think he came up with the idea for the name of Shashank years before I was born, apparently. And so I think there's maybe a bit of a hope in the back of his mind that maybe I might pick up flute. And it was kind of fortunate that Sunitha was close to us. And I think I really became interested in the form myself after going to one of Ramani's concerts in Ann Arbor. And I only knew one song at the time, which was it was Dharavana Gopala, actually. And I asked him to play it. And I knew at that age that I wasn't supposed to make any requests. He probably came with a game plan, with a concert list, and he ended up playing it. So that was like my first aha moment with Ramani sir. And I think I'll talk about aha moments that I've had with Ramani sir. So seeing him kind of honor my request and playing that song was like the spark, and that kind of made me fall in love with the art form, and with him, of course. And so after deciding that I want to take up the instrument, we approached Sunitha and I gave her a lot of hell. So, because I couldn't get a single sound for months and months and months, I came, Appa joined me in classes, he got it after a while, she picked up the flute one day, months into my classes, and she's like, it can't be that hard. And she played it, and she got it right away, so then Shruti joined us in classes. And I was the only guy in a group of maybe 6 or 7 students that did not get it. And then I remember Sunitha being on the phone with Ramani sir, and again, I had never talked to him but for giving that one concert request. And I knew that he probably didn't remember me, he didn't know who I was, but he was taking time on an international call, which was pretty expensive, even 10 years ago, to kind of tell Sunitha maybe what techniques I should use, or she should tell me to play, so to help me just get a single stop. And that was another aha moment. This musician of that caliber was taking some time to help a student who he might not even know, just because it's another student that he can do some good for. And then, this is aha moments, right? The first competition that I ever competed in, the second, one of the competitions that I competed in Cleveland, I played Ragunayaka, and also in the song list was that I had submitted to the organizers was Mani Valikin. And Ramani sir had come to Sunitha's house the previous fall, and I had requested that he play Mani Valikin in your living room. And when he let me pick the song that I wanted to play, instead of telling me play this song, he told me I can play whatever I want. So I played Ragunayaka, and afterwards he came up to me, he's like, "Nee da pona varsham Mani Valikin request panniliya, nee adu vaasirukanum." And so I think that was, again, he just remembered, and that was a big, just ran a chill down my spine that he would remember something very small that happened months ago. And then the following day, he actually called me. This was before prize distribution even happened. And I asked him, and he said, I'll say it in English, he said, he kind of thought for a minute, and he said, "You played fine, but you took the easy way out by playing a simpler song." And so that was the first inkling that, okay, there is a standard that he adheres to, and that my work ethic should improve, and that he's not, he didn't say anything bad about my playing, he didn't say that I played anything wrong, but it was a very subtle hint that maybe I need to try for a 10 out of 10 instead of an 8 out of 10, and if I falter, that's fine, but he was okay with me as long as I pushed myself a little harder. So that was a very big eye-opener, that he would not accept less than your maximum effort. And it was like a Kati junior competition at the time, but that has stuck with me the whole time. A couple of years after that, I remember Sunitha teaching us the Panchatma Kritis and then Chetulara in Bhairavi, and that's always been a very dear song to me, and I think that it was originally composed in Karalapriya. Ramani sir adapted it to, or Ramani sir plays it in Bhairavi, and talking about aha moments again, there's a pin drop silence that occurred one year in Cleveland when Ramani sir came on stage and all the artists are mingling, they're talking, they're jovial, they're laughing, and then Sundaram Mama says Ramani sir will play Chetulara. Sundaram Mama gets off stage and people are still kind of talking, and then Ramani sir picks up that flute, pin drop silence. And that was like an eye-opener to the amount that everybody, there's so many Sangeeta Kalanidhis, Ratnakaras, so many different musicians of caliber, thousands of people packed in the audience, and I've never heard a deafening silence like that at that time in my life. So that was showed how much people look forward to that Chetulara that Ramani sir played, and how much people revered him. So that moved me a lot, and that's always, since then, it's become one of my favorite songs. Whenever I hear Ramani sir play, I just think about that pin drop silence that I heard before he picked up the flute. And then also the same year, we're playing Pancharatnams, and I won't say any names, but there was one Vidhwan, or Vidushi, I'll leave that up to your imagination, that I had never seen smile before that. I had interacted with them a few times, and they scared me. I had never seen them smile, they made me nervous. And Ramani sir is playing Yendiro Mahanubhavulu, and in the Anupadavi, he plays this one brilliant trill. And when he played that, this Vidhwan smelled. And I was just, all I could think was, like, I was in such shock seeing that, but all I could think was, cool. That's all I could think. And again, multiple times during that Yendro Mahanubhavalo, I saw this particular Vidhwan smile and like with like that's what Amma says. If you're gonna smile properly. And they were almost laughing when Ramani sir played these trills, and it was just the most eye-opening experience. I'll just conclude by saying one thing. Again, I haven't had as many experiences or interactions with Ramani sir as a lot of the other people on stage have, but I think I've had very impactful interactions when I have. Shruti and I went to his house one summer in Chennai, and we played. It was after the Kamalamba Navavarnaka themed year in Sashaning Satyanaya, and we played the Ananda Bhairavi Kamalamba Samrakshatumam song for him. And he stopped, we played one line, and he kind of put his hand up and he said, "Wooden show." And then he got a flute, and he just said, "Idi appriyat kyu paare?" And then he just played like 3 notes. And I don't, just talking about it doesn't do it justice, but in the 3 notes that he played, it was like an ocean of Ananda Bhairavi that absolutely obliterated what little I knew. And I think somebody was saying that he was very, I found that he might play only 4 minutes of a Karadapriya Alapani, which most people might play for 10-15 minutes. But in that 4 minutes, he would give you the absolute essence of the ragam, and with the most little amount of time, he would give you the most amount of substance. And that was like the first inkling that I had, hitting him play just a one line of Ananda Bhairavi, that, okay, there's so much knowledge and so much ability and so much thought that goes behind what he plays. And that was like when I say aha moment, that was the first time where I thought, okay, I need to take this art form seriously if I want to learn even 1% of what he knows. And so I think with that, I've gained a lot of respect for Ramani sir. I loved the way he would talk to Amma and ask her if she had badam at every meal when he was coming to Sunitha Auntie's house. When I was in Cleveland this past year, I was helping him pack up his bags to check out of the hotel room, and there was a couple of Korves, actually it was previous year, and we had played Abdullah Hadi the day before in the group program, and he was saying, "Oh, you can also do this variation of this Korve," and then he was ready, I pulled out my phone, I was recording it, and there was 4 or 5 variations of the one Korve that he was telling me, and this is off the bliss, I'm packing, and I'm worried about we're gonna miss the flight, and he's like, "Here's this Korve, make sure you get a hold of it." And then at the end of it, Shruti hadn't come to Cleveland, and he's talking about Korve, he's talking about G.N. Bala Subramaniam sings this Sangadi in Parinanimichite, and at the end of it, he said, "Shruti yoda kai eppadi irukku?" Because I guess Amma had told him the previous weekend that Shruti had some injury, and he remembered that the whole time, and that told me how sort of compassionate and thoughtful of a man he was. He had nutya things going on in his head, but he remembered that, and that was very moving for me. So I loved every interaction I had with Ramani sir. I miss him dearly, but I think I've learned a lot, and I'm still continuing to learn a lot from him.
Is there anything else that anybody would like to share? I think we have just 1 minute left according to what I see from here. So with that, I would like to thank each and every one of you to share so much of your own personal experiences. It has been really, as Shashank said in his thing, it has been a fantastic ride with him, right? So we are continuing to go in this journey with him, and we look forward to many such experiences. And with that, thank you to all of you.